Hi, I'm USA Today bestselling author Jennifer Youngblood. Thanks for joining me for one chapter a day, The Clean Romance Way. I'm going to be reading Chapter 2 of her Crazy Rich Fake Fiancé today. I'm excited. Be sure and take a second to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Okay, at the end of Chapter 1, we left Haven in an interesting situation. Her mom, Demi, had invited her to come to New York City to spend Christmas and then ditched her. And then she finds out that her identical twin sister, Bryn, is running off to Ireland with a movie star. And she mentions as she runs out the door, she says, "Oh, my sort of boyfriend might be stopping by. Just tell him that I won't be able to go to Atlanta with him for Christmas." So here is poor Haven, and you just get this feeling that she's lonely. I mean, her dad has passed away a year before, and she's from this little small town, and you can tell that she needs connections, and I just really feel for her. But we are going to find out what happens. So we left her at the point where she was getting something out of the fridge. The doorbell rings. She goes to answer it, and she's just kind of Twitter-pated by this guy that's there, Wyatt. So we're going to find out what happens. Chapter 2. Haven's first thought was that her sister was a moron for dumping this guy. "Breathe," she commanded herself, but her lungs didn't seem to get the message. She felt like they were deflated balloons, refusing to take in the air she gulped. Wyatt's gaze moved over her with appreciation as a slow smile stole over his lips. "Wow," he uttered, "you look incredible." Butterflies flapped furiously in Haven's stomach as he encircled her waist and pulled her into his strong arms. Haven inhaled the crisp scent of his leather jacket the second before his lips touched hers, sending a bolt of lightning zigzagging through her. Had the kiss been more of a peck, she could have lost herself in the wonder of his lips and his intoxicating scent that was 100% male. An unexpected longing punched through her, making her want more. She'd never know how close she came to throwing all reason out the window and kissing him back because he released his hold and closed the door. For an instant, she was so mesmerized that she just stood there, bug-eyed. Amusement sparkled in his eyes. "You okay?" Wait a minute, she was in New York, not Tennessee, but Wyatt had a distinctive southern drawl. It sounded a little exaggerated, sexy. He had a confident, cavalier way about him that reminded her of the actor Matthew McConaughey. She could tell, even with his jacket, that he was muscular and well-built. He was taller than Matthew McConaughey, about 6'3". His piercing sapphire eyes seemed to have the power to see into a person's soul. His brown hair was wavy and longer on top, the ends tipped with blonde, kind of like a windswept surfer who lived in California rather than New York. More of a Matthew McConaughey meets Bradley Cooper. She went back to the height thing, giving herself an inward dark chuckle. How many people even knew that Matthew McConaughey was 6 feet tall? Only lonely, boring women whose bosom bud was Netflix. Wyatt motioned at the bag she'd left lying on the floor when she'd first entered the apartment. "I see you're ready to go." He grinned. "Wonders never ceased," he teased. "I figured I'd have to pack you myself and help you get out the door." Haven's first instinct was to respond that she was rarely, if ever, late. Then she realized he was talking about Bryn. Geez, it was crazy how quickly that little detail flew out of her bird brain. A handsome man crossed the threshold and gave her a peck on the lips, and suddenly she became a mindless groupie. Pathetic, she knew. "How close are you to being ready? I want to get on the road and out of the city before rush hour traffic." Bryn said Wyatt wanted to take her home to Christmas to meet his family. It was a 2-day drive to Atlanta. Oh, what did it matter? She wasn't Bryn. In a few short seconds, the charade would be over. Wyatt would realize he'd been dumped, and Haven would go back to spending Christmas alone. "Is everything okay?" The concern on Wyatt's features was touching. He seemed like a nice guy, which made this even harder. Blast Bryn. Haven wet her lips and touched her earring. There's something I need to tell you." She pointed to the couch. "Maybe we should sit down." His lips formed a tight, resigned line. "You're not coming with me to Atlanta." "No." There she had said it. She hated the guilt that cut ribbons through her. Everything in her wanted to recant the no just so she could smooth the tension from his handsome face. She had just met Wyatt and yet felt such a strong connection with him. Why couldn't she feel this way about Curtis? How could Bryn be so blasé about giving Wyatt the brush off and riding into the sunset with another man? No, not just another man. Malcolm Chase. The Malcolm Chase, as Bryn said. An incredulous laugh rose in Haven's throat. Luckily, she swallowed it back down before it could escape. The last thing she wanted was Wyatt thinking she was laughing at him. She wanted to laugh about this insane situation while thinking of her dismal prospects for dating in Red Rose. A guy like Wyatt would be king here, racking up enough dates for a year the minute he stepped inside the town limits. Haven sat down. Wyatt sat right down next to her, their knees touching. He took her hands in his, sending her pulse flying as attraction buzzed through her. She knew she should be thinking of a way to let him down gently, but all she could think about was his lips and how they'd felt against hers. The curls against his neck were so tempting. She wanted to run her fingers through them and touch the rugged outline of his features. Was she really this desperate? Her dad would be appalled if he could see her now. Wyatt peered into her eyes as if he were searching for a long-held secret. "I was afraid this might happen." "You were?" she squeaked. He was so close. He sighed heavily. "I know things have been tense between us lately and that you don't feel comfortable with close-knit family get-togethers." "I love close-knit family get-togethers," her mind argued. "We haven't been getting along?" The instant the question left her mouth, she thought of how stupid it sounded. Of course they weren't getting along. Bryn just ran off with another man. Wyatt gave her a funny look. "Well, you've been traveling. My work schedule's insane. The two of us have hardly been able to find a minute to spend together the past several weeks. And yet you want to take me to Atlanta to meet your family?" A lopsided grin slid over his lips as he squeezed her hands. "I have a confession to make." "You do? Crap. This was getting more and more complicated. What was he about to confess?" Haven shushed the panic that arose in her chest, reminding herself that she was under no obligation to tell Bryn anything about this conversation. "On the drive over here, I wondered if maybe the two of us should just throw in the towel and call it quits." "You did? That was a good thing, right?" Why was Haven feeling the sting of disappointment? "Yeah, there's been this brick wall between us lately." His eyes held hers. "Today, sitting here with you, it feels different." A surprised laugh escaped Haven's throat. Kudos to Wyatt. Even though she and Bryn were identical in looks, they were planets away from each other in personality. At least Wyatt was perceptive enough to notice. "Here's the deal. You come with me to Atlanta, I introduce you to my family and give them warm fuzzies about me having a steady girlfriend. Meanwhile, we have a fabulous time. No strings attached. If after Christmas we feel like this relationship isn't going anywhere, we part ways. No harm, no foul. What do you say, Bryn? Are you in?" The possibility sent tingles circling through her. Oh, how she wanted to jump up and exclaim, "Yes!" She bunched her brows, her thoughts catching on something he said. "Why do your parents care if you have a girlfriend?" He laughed easily. "You know how some parents are, wanting to make sure their kids are happily settled and moving into what my dad calls the big boy pants." "Big boy pants," she chuckled. "Your dad seems like a character." "Oh, you have no idea." She felt like there was more to the story about the girlfriend thing, but it wasn't her place to question. Haven was burning to ask what Wyatt did for a living. She assumed he lived in New York and that's how he met Bryn. Was Wyatt in the fashion industry? He certainly didn't seem like the type to get excited about women's fashion. Whatever his job, it obviously wasn't serious enough to appease his parents. They wanted him on the marriage track to transition into adulthood responsibly. Wyatt seemed very responsible. Well, from what she could tell after just meeting him. His eyes moved over her like warm sunshine, doing strange things to her insides. Haven wanted to throw good sense to the wind and kiss him for real this time. "What's it going to be?" Hope simmered in his eyes, shooting out and encircling her heart in a golden glow. She pictured herself sitting behind her desk in her classroom, spelling out an either-or question for her students. "Let's see. Would you rather spend Christmas with this fascinating, incredibly gorgeous man who makes you feel more alive than you felt in years, or stay here and sit in this bleak apartment alone, trying to convince yourself that you're excited about going sightseeing in an overcrowded, unfriendly, frigidly cold city? Which choice should you choose?" She heard the Jeopardy game show theme chime in her head. Wyatt released her hands and touched her cheek. Her breath hitched as his finger trailed an energizing tickle down her skin. His blue eyes took on a new depth of intensity. At this moment, Wyatt could have asked her to go to the moon, and she would have said yes. "Please," he murmured, the rich timbre of his baritone voice purring through her like a contented cat. He flashed a dazzling smile. "Okay," she heard herself say. He rewarded her with a smile so large that it sent a bubble of pleasure bursting over her. "We're going to have a great Christmas, Bryn Lockwood, you and me." She stiffened at the use of her sister's name. He leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head, causing his lips to miss their mark and brush against her cheek. "I'm sorry," she uttered. As much as she wanted to kiss him, she wanted to kiss him as Haven, not Bryn. "No worries," he said softly, masking his disappointment with a reassuring smile. "It's better that we take things slow. Figure out if this is going anywhere." "Yes," she breathed, relief flooding through her. She could go to Atlanta with Wyatt, experience what it was like to be part of a family again, if only for a few days. Then, at the end, she could tell Wyatt things weren't working out. They'd go their separate ways, and she'd have a wonderful memory to bottle up in her heart and carry her through the lonely times. "You're not Bryn," her mind screamed. "This is a bald-faced lie. Nothing good can come of it." She shushed that goody-goody voice in her head, telling herself that it was only for a few days. What would it hurt to have a few moments of happiness? "How much time will it take for you to be ready to walk out the door?" Wyatt asked, in a tone that suggested they couldn't waste another second. "Give me 10 minutes. That was enough time to raid Bryn's closet. Haven was in deep now. Borrowing a few of Bryn's gorgeous clothes was the least of her worries at this point. There went that little voice in her head, chattering like a parrot hyped up on sugar. "This is going to backfire. This day will go down in infamy as the day you goofed up big time. Sure, some secret part of you has always wanted to find out what it was like to be Bryn Lockwood, but not like this." "All right," she said mostly to herself, putting a muzzle on the parrot. "Let's do it." Okay. If you were in Haven's shoes, which would you choose? I loved how she posed the question as an either or. I mean, would you prefer to spend Christmas with a gorgeous man, or would you prefer to sit in this apartment alone for the holidays? Sounds like a no-brainer, right? I kind of like the part 2 where she's telling herself, oh, it's only just for a few days. Of course, we know it's probably going to get more complicated than that. When I was a kid, I used to fantasize about what it would be like to have an identical twin. Would you like to have an identical twin? It would be tough not to compare yourself to that person, someone who looks exactly like you but is not you. I mean, you can tell that Haven feels dowdy and ordinary compared to Bryn. However, she's down to earth and not entitled or catty like Bryn. I don't like how Bryn was poking fun of Haven in chapter 1 for stuttering. She's like bringing up all of these old weaknesses that Haven had, and I don't like that. Bryn seems like a piece of work, as does her mother. Haven and Wyatt are about to get on the road. We're going to find out what happens next as I read chapter 3 tomorrow. Here's to keeping it sweet and swoony. See y'all tomorrow.